All right, Fire Fam. Welcome back to Carry On Fire Family. I am Audrey, your host, and today we are having a conversation that is going to be real, honest, and maybe a little uncomfortable for some, but that's me. I like to make things uncomfy. You're not welcome here. My wife won't let me work with you. She can't pull me out of a burning building. She's weak. She's DEI. She didn't earn it. These are just a few things that some female firefighters hear in the firehouse and what I see often online. In the comment section, in posts, anything that has to do with a firefighter, if there's a female involved, there is usually somebody in the comments saying she didn't earn it. So we're going to talk about it today. What it is actually like to be a female firefighter in a male-dominated field, and not just inside the station, but outside of it too. My guest today is Amanda, a wife, mom of two, a Christian, a Swiftwater team member, and an engineer operator, a woman who has cut 4 holes in her career more than most firefighters ever will. But her story doesn't just start in the firehouse. It starts with homelessness, off and on, at age 15, childhood without support, becoming a mother at 19 while she was in college full-time, earning 2 degrees, building a life from nothing, and then stepping into one of the most male-dominated careers out there. We're talking culture, motherhood, marriage, sisterhood, and the dynamics between female firefighters, the male firefighters they work with, and for some, the wives or spouses of those firefighters and how they are treated differently. So buckle up. Let's get into it. All right, Amanda, welcome.
Thank you
How
for
are
having
you?
me. Good, good. I just got off of work this morning at 6:30, so today's my rest day.
Is your shift change at 6:30?
Yes, 6:30 to 6:30, and we work kind of like some of the schedule you've seen. We have 5 days off in a row, so 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, and then 5 days off. And we also work one debit day a month. So in one of those weeks, we'll work one extra day.
Okay, so it's like a Kelly.
Yes, yes.
Oh, God. Well, that 5 days off must be nice.
Yes, and when you get 2 days of vacation, it's more like 2 weeks of vacation. So I love that.
Yes. Do you guys have a lot of overtime? Do you have a lot of Mandos or?
So I've never heard it called Mando before. I've seen that term floating around, but we have overtime and it's not forced. The way that our overtime works is when in the morning, if no one's there to relieve you, you're either a priority 1 or a priority 2. They tried this other priority 3 thing that didn't work, very short-lived. Priority 1 people, they have to be relieved according to our guidelines by 8:30 a.m. and our priority 2 people are saying, "Hey, basically if you can't find anybody to relieve me, I'm willing to stay all day." So it's worked out for a lot of us. Overtime is our second job. But I would say that the department's hiring a lot more, so that's kind of starting to go away.
Dang, that sounds nice, actually. Sounds better than how we
Yeah.
do it out here in California land. All right. You entered the fire service in 2016, right?
Right.
What did you
Yes.
think it would be like?
I actually didn't have a lot of I don't know if you've ever done something with no idea like what you're getting into. And that's kind of how I got into the department. I actually thought I was gonna go be a police officer and I was going through that process. I had excuse me, quit my job at in the oil and gas field to so I could start physically preparing working out and stuff like that for the police department. And I got almost through that entire, um, hiring process, and I was at work one day. I was, doing a side job at REI, one of my favorite stores, and, one of the guys that knew I was going through the process came in with his brother, and he's like, "Oh, okay, I work for the police department. My brother works for the fire department." And, we were just chit-chatting and catching up, and his brother said, I don't think you wouldn't make it through our recruiting, our PAT test and anything like that." And so, I think it was, like, that day I said, "You know what? I'm gonna do this." So, this is a lesson for some men. Some women, including myself, are very driven by telling us that we can't do something. And aside from that, my uncle was a paramedic he joined in 1996, but he passed away in 1998. So there's still a lot of members that remember him and they see me, they know, they find out who I am and they know that I'm related to him. So
So you were going to be a police officer, and then somebody said you would never pass the fire. So you
yep.
said, screw it, I'm gonna be a firefighter?
So basically I went back in 2016. They used to have what's called Women in Career Fitness. You
Mhm,
can go every Friday or every other Friday to the training academy, and you can try out the physical ability test. We call it the PAT test. And
mhm.
so I said, "You know what? Let me see where I'm at. If I fail it miserably, then I'm just going to, stick with HPD or, the police department." And so I went and I passed, and I was, like, really surprised. Of course, a lot of that was adrenaline, not a lot of training. And so, I actually did that whole process 4 times total. I did it that time, and then I did it 3 more times. The last time it actually counted for my hiring, and so I passed every single time, but I definitely had a lot of doubt in my head, going in that I was gonna be able to pass.
So, did you feel like you had to prove yourself more than the male counterparts, or was it just more like you just wanted to see if you could do it?
I wouldn't say it was more than the male counterparts. I think because there was really only males there, there wasn't a lot of women there. It felt like I had to just prove myself against whoever's there. But as time has gone by, I would say more that it's evident to me that it doesn't matter how much we prove ourselves. It's never going to be enough. So I mean, and I say that with some kindness to some of my teammates, my crew. I really get along with my crew, and I have a lot of really um, good coworkers that I would call like very close acquaintances. But I would not say at all that I would consider them, you know, like I do my family. My all for my team, my crew, and I would expect the same back from them, but I have learned the hard way not to give too much of myself to my job. So I love them,
Uh-huh.
but I love them from a distance, and, they're kinda like the people you see and you every other holiday or something like that, but, we're in general very close on my crew. We just had one of the members just had a death in his family, and we all kind of came together for that, and so, um we also all went to Colorado Springs last year as a group. All of us and our families went together to celebrate the life of one of the members in our district who lost his life in a fire. So, if you know anything about Colorado Springs, they add the names
Yes.
to the wall. Yeah. So
Yes.
we're
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
generally pretty close, closer than any other crew I've ever been on. So
But you still have it sounds like you have really good boundaries too about, like, knowing kind of when to leave the work out of your home life.
I think that has come with trials and tribulations itself. Because I mentioned in my bio that I'm married, so I've been married since 2018. But we've been together for a long time, and so part of my relationship with my husband is knowing that, hey, I had all this heavy stuff that I had to adjust to carrying at work, and then I come home, and so and just like every other relationship, I watch a lot of your content, and I see that we're very similar in some ways. Some of the wives and myself, that we expect things from our husbands. And then I've just happened to be on the other side of knowing mentally and physically sometimes where we're at.
Yeah.
So with that being said, yeah, I leave stuff at work and I come home and I mentally jump in to where we are at home. And my husband and I have a lot of the same communication struggles that other people in my peer group have. So it's nice to be able to feel like, we're not a one off. And that way I can be very supportive to a lot of the guys I work with. You know, um I drive an ambulance. I don't know if you were aware of that.
No, I don't think you told me that. So but you're an engineer now, right?
Yes. So
How does
you
that
start off
work?
as a probation or firefighter, then you are a
Mhm.
firefighter, then you can test for the engineer operator position. But once you get up to that spot, you kind of go back to the bottom of seniority. And so the back to the bottom is you drive an ambulance. So some of my coworkers have driven an ambulance for 4 or 5 years before they were able to have enough time to drive a fire truck. And then even more
It's based
time
on
to drive the
hours?
ladder. It's based on years of service.
Okay, years. Okay. Okay. And back to your husband. So he is not a firefighter, correct? Just a
No.
regular old civilian. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
He does IT. He does IT work.
Y-
He's a nerd.
Oh, me too. Okay, we gotcha. We gotcha. Okay. Um, how does he feel about you being a firefighter?
I think my husband's a little bit of a unicorn. He's very supportive, and I think I shelter him a lot from some of the stuff that I experienced. But even that at some point became so heavy for us. I had experienced some harassment at one of the stations I was at, and I never told him anything that was going on. And then fast forward until a year later, after some of that stuff had stopped, I finally went through the process of, filing a grievance on this person. I filed within 30 days, but it just took a long time for that process to start. So as I was going through that process, it was very emotional, and I had to end
Mhm.
up telling my husband everything. And so there's times that I call him and I'll tell him, "Hey, guess what this person said?" or "Guess what this person said?" And he's like, "Oh my gosh, they don't think what they're about to say before they say it." And I was like, some of it I give them grace because we're humans and sometimes we make mistakes, and even I sometimes I feel like sometimes I say things um just without thinking. But
Yeah.
also, it's a profession. We are a professional career fire department, and we are paid. I think we're paid very well. I'm very happy with my pay, and I don't want to lose that. And so, the professionalism is like the number one thing in my mind. It's just not always
Mhm.
the number one thing in other people's minds. So, he knows
Correct.
a lot of what goes on, but I would also say that my husband, he's such a sweetheart. He just doesn't. He thinks the best of everybody. So.
What did he say about the grievance specifically? Was he surprised? Was he like, you need to quit? Or was like, what was his reaction to it?
He asked me why I didn't tell him, sooner. And
Yeah.
the answer to that was some of it I was trying to deal with on my own. Like, I was battling this internal if you will, battle of whether I should say something. You know,
Mhm.
a lot of the guys that I work with in my district, they know about this situation because I mean, as you probably know, the fire department's just it's kind of like high school. And so there's a
Yes.
lot of there's a lot of
Gossip.
chisme gossip, yes. And
Yes.
so
Mhm.
I will get every now and then somebody's asked me, "Well, tell me about it." And or they want to know. And so I like to think I'm a pretty open book, and I'll tell somebody. If I know their motives aren't bad. But ultimately people believe what they want to believe. And of course, I always feel like I'm going to be biased against, for myself. So, um I try to do my best to tell exactly what happened, but at the time, I just was trying to battle like, do I say something or do I wait longer and collect more evidence? Because unfortunately, for a lot of the women in the fire department, if you were to speak up about one singular incident, it's just not enough. And in fact, our department's way of handling that would be to separate the two people. Now, if one person was a captain, for example, in my situation was my captain and myself as a firefighter, it's easier to send me away than it is to send
Yep.
him away because
Yep.
there's more of firefighters than there is captains. So it almost feels like a punishment for speaking up. And a lot
Yep.
of women that are in my department's only 5% women. And even less percentage of that is actually in the field. And so a lot of the women I talk to say the same thing. They've experienced some pretty crazy things and they just don't speak up about it. So
Mhm.
my husband was very understanding, but also in his mind is like, "Why don't you say something?" Well, that's because he's come from his corporate world where, you can just say one thing about something, did something very uncomfortable and it's a big deal. In the fire department, they're kind of like, I've even had a female chief tell me, "You're going to have to get thicker skin and you're going to have to let things roll off your back. You're in a man's world and men are going to say things and you're just going to have to let it go if you want to have a good career."
But who decided it was a man's world in the departments? Who
I
decided
think it
that?
just historically that,
Yeah.
people see that firefighters are the men, they show up and
Mhm.
they're the rescuers, and I think it's stereotypically, we see that in our relationships, right? Men are the
Mhm.
savers, but they
Mhm.
don't give us enough credit as women. We're the backbones, we make things work, we know the schedules, we are the supporters of them, they need us, so otherwise they could just go live in their happy little world without us.
Amen. Okay. Amen. Okay. Let's talk about your strengths because you said you've cut 4 holes more than most in their career. What does that mean to you personally?
I think that means to me that's something that I get to cherish, and I know that I proven to myself that I am capable of doing this job. And I am very, very capable and able of performing the same tasks that, I get a lot of heat for. So, the first thing that a lot of men online, women online, nurses, they like to attack your ability to do your job, and then they attack your attitude. And I don't find that only in the fire department, but just for women in general, their attitudes and their abilities to do their jobs are kind of like the low hanging fruit. And so, unfortunately, I've experienced that myself. And knowing my reputation as a good firefighter, I could run circles around some of the guys I work with, and that just, it's not for them. It's just for me. It's for me to take home and me to know, hey, look, you don't need anyone else to validate that you know how to do your job. You know how to do your job.
I love that. All right. You became a mom at 19 in college. How did that kind of shape the way you're approaching this career?
So I think that's one of the reasons why I fit in with some of and I can actually relate to a lot of the patients that we encounter on a day to day basis. Um, I like to think that I have grit. I'm a lot of people that I meet, uh, their hardships shape them, and I'm no different. My hardships, they shaped me. I had my daughter, like you said, my daughter when I was 19. I was going to college full time, and I was working full time. I had my own apartment, my own car, my own insurance, my own bills. And so sometimes I meet people and I have to remind myself to have empathy for their situations because not everybody is driven the same way that I was driven. And so that's hard. And then the other side of that is I see people who, they prevail through hardships, and I have a lot of respect for that.
How's the mom guilt?
With my daughter, she was 9 when I entered the fire service. Actually, she was 8 and then she turned 9, but with her, it wasn't so much because I didn't work hardly any overtime in the beginning, and I spent a lot of time with her. And so we did, field trips, and it was just one of the benefits of having the schedule that we had. And then at some point, yeah, we decided I need to start working more to save for our wedding, which we paid for, did not go into debt for. And yeah, I missed out on a lot of stuff. I think the mom guilt is when I come home tired. And I know now I have a 5-year-old. He was born in the peak of COVID. And sometimes when
Mhm.
I come home, he says, Mama, I missed you. Or he like turns over and he'll say, Can we cuddle? And so, I would let him miss school every day, but he can't miss school. So, but I miss the days when he wasn't taking attendance because we would spend every day I was off together. So
Oh, oh, buddy. So, is it like in kindergarten?
he is, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's such a good age, such a fun
Yeah,
age. Oh my gosh.
that's right.
All right. There's an unspoken kind of dynamic sometimes between female firefighters and the wives specifically of male firefighters. Tell me about your experience with firefighters saying they cannot work with a female because their wife told them they can't.
So the thing that still amazes me is I meet people from other departments who they don't have guidelines covering this. And so I think that's why it's so surprising to hear other people dealing with these issues. Um, and I wish I could just wave a magic wand and fix it all for them. And I would say that, we have a SOP for this particular issue. Um, it kind of is like a broad one, but it covers this issue and it still doesn't get followed. We have a guideline that states that when I want to transfer to another station, it used to be respect out of respect, I would call the station and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about putting in for your station." I talked to the captain. They would kind of have to like give me their blessing and say, "Yeah, you can put in for the station." Um, but that turned into a lot of things that happened before I even came to the department. There was some, racial tension, of course, sexism, stuff like that. So they put this guideline into place to try to nix all that. Now, that's not to say that people still don't call even though they're not supposed to, or people still get, I would say, hazed or harassed for not calling, even though we're not supposed to. So I've had the experience of a guy saying, "Trust me, you could never put in for my station." And straight up, well, why is that? Well, my wife would never let me work with a female. And in the beginning, yeah, I mean that it hurt me. It hurt me a lot to hear. Well, what I heard was nobody wants me. They don't want me there. I can't do my job. But over time and experience and some maturity on my part, I've learned that this is their issue. This is the guy's issue with their own relationships, and it should not affect me. Now, I have put myself where I went to the station anyways, and I did not have a good experience. So, there's that. So, I would just say it's like a red flag for me if someone says that to me, and it's not just to go and prove that I can do my job. I don't need to do that anymore. I know I can do my job. Now it's more so, what do I want in my everyday? Am I gonna be at peace being here at this station?
So you have and your department has an SOP specifically saying like they cannot discriminate against the female or based on race. Is that right?
Right.
Like
Mhm.
that's crazy to me that there has to be an SOP that even says that because that should just be I mean that's like common law. I mean we can't discriminate based off of sex or race.
Yeah. Or
I
or
don't
gender
even
identity or sexual preferences. So we do have, I'm proud to say this, that we do have, several transgender members in our department, and their plight is rough, so, um yeah, we need that SOP to say, "Hey, you can't tell me no unless there's," I remember transferring to a station and I accidentally knocked their rookie out. So they had a rookie, they wanted to keep him, but I had more time and experience than he did. And so when I put in for the station, he didn't get the spot. And I remember I was there for 2 weeks, and I remember the senior captain saying very specifically they had a retirement party at the station, and he said, "I wish we could still block people." And so I was the newest member, and obviously I felt very like he was targeting me. And that man and I never got along, and I had the worst experience at that station ever. I was the earliest one there, hardest working. I did everything, and I could never make them happy. And so I ended up just leaving because I decided that my mental health was more important than proving that I belonged somewhere. It wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it to me. So, but other than the guy saying, "Oh, well, you could never put in for my station," yeah, I've had other men say things like, that would make me think, "Don't put in for that station, that's gonna be an issue." I
God,
know.
this is blowing my mind right now. Like I am like Jesus, it is 2026 for God's sake. I mean, I feel like we've almost like gone backwards in society from, from the start of your career to now. It feels like it's like we're in like some time loop we can't get out of. I don't know.
Um,
I mean, I'll say like my husband's department right now does not have any females, but when he started, there were three. They've all since retired. But they were some of the most hardworking people I had ever met and nice, kind, amazing human beings. This shit blows me away. I'm like dumbfounded right now. What would you want the wives to understand about women in this job? Like if you could get them all in a room, what would you say to them?
so just like any other job, I mean, obviously there's issues when people work in offices as well, and they have, historically affairs happen in every job. So our job is no different, and the fact that we're quartered together, actually, I don't think that makes any difference either, because I get to experience and see some of these things, the patients that we encounter that are, they've had affairs, or they were assaulted in middle of the affair by the wife finding them. They People will find a way. The fire service is just no different. I don't know, everybody's fire department is different. I know that there's some departments out there, they have really good funding, and they have like women's bathrooms, women's quarters, stuff like that. We don't have that. We do have some facilities that have women only bathrooms, and that's more of like a please don't use my bathroom. It's not a hard line of don't go to that bathroom. If there's no women there in that day, they're gonna use the bathroom. Trust me.
Totally.
Um,
Mhm. Yeah.
when I was breastfeeding my son, I breastfed my son. I mean, I lactated in the bathroom at some times. I had to put a sign up, "Do not enter." So,
Oh my god.
but you know, it's gonna happen either way. And I see some of the other women that I work with, and I think it's all about maturity. I really do feel like what you're doing here with the mental health aspect. I did listen to, some of the other podcasts about the mental health aspect is just so big. If we're not growing individually and in our relationships, there's going to be a break somewhere. And unfortunately, for some of the men I work with, it's just easy pickings to be, housed with the female. Um, and in other cases, I've had men who are just downright so respectful. One particular guy in my district, every time I see him, he says, "I have so much respect for you. Yes, ma'am." And he doesn't even have to say these things. He's just so, he just gives me that respect. So I think wives only have as much to worry about with their husbands with a female firefighter as they do with any other female. Female firefighters are just no different. They're just another person.
Yep, exactly. And like you said, there is a professionalism aspect of the job. The ones who are unprofessional are going to be like that
Regardless.
on and off the field, right? Like you
Yes.
cannot, you just can't. Like that's just their personality, right? They're going to act a certain way. They're probably not going to be any different
Yeah.
outside of the job. You could probably count on that, I think.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, do you ever wonder to yourself why the fire service or public servants, police officers have higher instances of domestic violence and marital affairs? I think some of it just comes with the personality of what it takes to be a first responder. Some people who have that personality of what it takes to see that type of stuff every day. And
Yeah.
then also that person knowing when and how to cope appropriately with the things that we deal with. Like we said before, a lot of the stuff I had to learn to leave behind at the station when I came home because, we do deal with and see a lot of pretty bad things. And there was a time that I came home angry all the time. I was angry because I was not sleeping well, angry because I knew I had a full day of work ahead of me at home, angry because I just witnessed really terrible things at work. And I didn't know how to, explain that to my husband. And so we've come up with our own little rule. And I've heard other people say they have the same thing. That first day I come home or the middle day is a rest day. I have to sleep and have to rest. And this morning when I came home, he got me coffee and some breakfast and he said, "Bye." So I got to stay home and sleep and rest. And
I love that.
we're going to be, you know, really good later. It's all about the support. And I'm trying to find more ways that I can do that for him because it's hard being the other way around.
I mean, it's different, it's like, yeah, you'll get there. You'll get there. Plus, you've got young ones too. So it's really hard when they're that young. It's really hard. Like, I mean, for both of you, I think you're in you're in muddy water still for that little one. And it's tough, man. It's tough. You'll get there. You'll get there for sure. All right, let's talk about your faith for a minute. So you were a Christian. You went through a lot of shit when you were younger. How do you
Yeah.
think your faith really helped you get to where you are now, and how is it helping you in your career?
Sure. So I was actually raised Catholic, and in about 2010, 2011 timeframe, Um, I really just did not go to church anymore. I rejected my faith. I was really upset with God. Why am I going through these things? Why am I experiencing this? It was a really tough time when my daughter was little. I would say that it took me some years to come back full circle to saying, okay, I want this in my life and I need this. And that's why when people tell me that they're in their own personal journey and they may not be fully 2 feet in, I understand where they're coming from, and in a way that there's still hope that that basis is there, the foundation is there for them to, come back when they're ready. And yeah, I think today I lean heavily on my faith to get me through some of the situations. Really just gratitude. Every day waking up and feeling grateful for the things I have, for my job. And some of the things we see, I really can't help but feel thank you, God, for this life. Thank you for waking me up for another day. Thank you for allowing me to go work overtime to support my family. Anyone who's questioning their faith, I was there. I was there with you for a while, and, I think sometimes, you need a little bit of a break to see what you were missing.
Yep, I would agree with that. Let's talk about your mental health for a second. I know we touched on it already, but how do you think the department is doing with mental health with the firefighters specifically, like now versus when you first started? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it the same? From a female perspective, what do you see kind of with the men specifically, since you're only 5% female?
Yeah. The doctor we had when I first entered the service, I loved him. His name was Dr. Buser, and he was boots on the ground. He even though he was a doctor, a psychologist, he understood the things that I mean, I think he went and participated in going to calls and stuff like that. Today, we don't have that. Today, we have a staff psychologist who has a degree in psychology.
Yeah.
He retired. Yeah, he spent
Oh, he
his
retired.
entire career with the fire department. He was very good, God bless him. So, we just don't have that anymore. I think this new generation, the younger generation, um, they get a lot of their mental health information from online. And that's why I think it's so important for people to be aware of what they're sharing, what they're encouraging. And on the other side of that, in encouraging, the members to be engaging with content that is uplifting and not, breaking you down. And it takes the individual person to kind of be in that space. But, other than that, we have things in place. Like I said, a staff psychologist who I just don't really care for. And we have a CISM team for incidents that are, it's critical incident stress management. But, they're not where they need to be. I will say that. They used to be way better. And there's some very good people on that team, but it's, for a department our size, we're 3,700 members, and we're supposed to be 4,100. It's not where it needs to be.
Dang, that is crazy. What are you doing to fix that?
So, there's a big divide between women, even within ourselves. I think I mentioned that there's only 5% of us, and even less of that is
Mhm.
in the field. So there's maybe 175 of us, and even less of that is actually in the field. Whenever I see other women or I see new females, and I want to get to know them and I want to talk to them and feel them out. And let them know, hey, if you ever, need a mentor, if you ever need to talk about something, reach out to me. And I have had females reach out to me about situations. And I try to give them, okay, here's what's the right way. This is what should happen. And here's what I've experienced in our department of how things actually happen. So we want to set our expectations. So I think, what am I doing? I'm trying to be there for some of these women in that way, and just like everybody else, sometimes my personality and their personality don't get along. A lot of women in my department and our personalities just don't mix. But I would say there's a handful of us, maybe 10 or 12 of us that we kind of band together. And we plan on doing things together, like the Women in Fire conference that's coming up in September in Austin. And I look forward to meeting other women,
Mhm.
just through that avenue. I think I've reached out to women across the country. I want to get to know them, see what their departments are doing. How are they doing things different? And maybe I can learn something from that.
Yep. Yep. I love that. Man. Okay. You said you like quilting?
Oh, I do. I just started sewing when I was in high school, took a sewing class, and pretty much never stopped. My first quilt, my daughter, I remember her being 3 years old, and she's snipping it up with scissors, and she said, "I did it." So, we laugh about that sometimes, but I've made probably about 10 or 12 quilts, and I don't ever sell them, I just give them to people that I love, and they know how much they mean, so
I
they're
love
pretty much
that.
all hand designed, and I tie them myself, so it's kind of one of my little old lady habits
Quilting
or
is
hobbies.
tough. Well, it's good for you mentally too. And you like to do yoga and go hiking?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, um it's important to do something that you're like, "Okay, I'm looking forward to doing this." And some people, that's that really hard working out at the gym and lifting the weights, and I get that. I look forward to going to yoga. I like we have a studio called Black Swan, and I like going there. And other than that, my family and I are just huge in the outdoors. I grew up camping and hunting and fishing outdoors, so my son and my son's in Cub Scouts, and my husband and my son and I, we go and we camp every time we can. So we just recently came back from camping in Garner, which is one of our favorite places to go. It's the hill country is beautiful here in Texas if you ever get a chance to visit.
What's one thing your kids think is cool about your job?
My daughter has not told me, so I don't know if she likes my schedule. I think she likes my schedule because when I'm off, we
Really?
do things together. But yeah, I hear her tell her friends sometimes, "Oh, my mom this." I think, if I had to say the one thing was that I get to participate in a lot of the parades because I'm in our special events team. And so, she got to go,
Uh-huh.
for example, to the Pride parade and be kind of like right in center. And the same with my husband when the Astros won oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed to say I don't even know what it was they
The
won.
World
They
Series?
were the World Series, yeah.
Ri
I mean, I can get along with the guys, but I don't know everything, so I'm not a sports person. So when they won the World Series, my husband got to ride in the, floats downtown, so and my son would say he loves
That's
visiting and
cool.
sitting in the truck, so
Yep, yep. Oh, that's so funny. Okay. I ask everybody on the podcast this question. What do you want your legacy to be for you, your kids, your family, your career? What do you hope to kinda leave?
yeah, so for my career, I don't wanna say I don't care, but I think that's the last priority on my list. My career, I wanna enjoy my career, and I think in enjoying my career, I will have touched at least one person to say, "Hey, I saw her do this, she prevailed, I can do this too," and then they can forge their own path. A lot of guys wanna leave a legacy of they were the teacher, they had their name on this, and for me, it's just not as important. I think the most important thing for legacy is my kids, my kids and my husband. I want them to say, "My mom loved me. My mom was there at all my events. My mom taught me what it's like to get through hard times and to know where to lean in to my faith during those hard times." Um, I think my biggest takeaway in life is that when I pass away or when I die, I want my kids to say, that's what I want to be like, in my own way. And then I want them to go out and find their own way. I don't want them to be just like me. They're going to be smarter and better and all the things than we are. Our kids are just already smarter than we are. So, hopefully that's what they get.
That is the truth. Yeah, they're ridiculously smarter than we ever were, and I'm very glad that, they are, 'cause, hopefully it won't be so difficult for them. That's, all we can strive for is just to make it a little bit easier for them, not, like, super easy, but just a
Yeah.
tiny bit easier,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, I have
Um,
learned that some
any last
hardships
thoughts?
I have
Mhm.
learned that some hardships, they really create, uh, that resilience in others. And so I think I'm okay with my kids having a hard time in some ways. I think I'm okay with them having some difficult moments, or some of the ladies in my department, if they experience difficult times, I think that's the path to a better future. Sometimes that building that resilience. So not all of life can be the flowers and sunshine. Sometimes, like in California, you need the rain and the hail. And of course, I guess you guys have the earthquakes.
So many earthquakes. Oh my god. It's it's been 2 months of just nonstop earthquakes. It's so bizarre. All right, Amanda. I cannot thank you enough for coming on here and just giving us kind of an insight into the female perspective in a very, very male dominated industry. Um, I love the female firefighters. I think you guys are badasses. I wish that, especially the women would be a lot more understanding of you and support you so that the men in this field maybe feel a little less threatened too. I don't know. That's just my thoughts. But this is a very important conversation. It really matters for female firefighters, for the departments, for the spouses, for the families, and for anybody who maybe wants to be a firefighter if you are a female or non-binary or transgender or not a male.
I'm here to say hi.
All the
Yep.
things, right?
All
Because
the things.
yeah,
Well, I
and
really appreciate you.
I really appreciate you just
I appreciate you. I appreciate that you are, you are kind of finding this path to opening up the conversations. And I've seen a lot of the content that you produce, and it's kind of like, listen, we don't have to see eye to eye, but let's have the conversation about it. And I really appreciate that about
yep.
some people who want to have those open conversations, even if in the end we don't agree.
Yep. Yep. It's one of those things where it's like it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for everybody, but it has to be said and it has to be talked about. We can't just keep shoving shit under the rug. It's just dumb. And, it's people like you that help propel the conversation in the correct direction and hopefully somebody will hear this or watch this and say, "Oh, wow, let me think about the way I handle this situation at work and why a special SOP needs to be in place for these kinds of situations." Oh, man. Thank you. I really appreciate you. You're awesome.
All right. Thank you so much. It's been fun.